the end of the Swiss miracle. Why Switzerland's economy model is falling apart. Let's get it.
If there's a country that symbolizes economic success, it must be Switzerland. I mean, there is a reason why we call other countries Switzerland of the Middle East or Switzerland of South America. And that's because for centuries, it has been one of the wealthiest countries in the world. And it managed to remain at the very top until today, thanks to its unique economic model. But while most people still haven't noticed, the truth is that this model is facing more and more problems. The world has changed, and what worked for Switzerland for so long is not working anymore. And for the first time in history, the future of the Switzerland's economic model is in serious trouble. But to understand why it's in trouble, we first need to explain what made Switzerland so wealthy in the first place. And while there is a popular idea that it was the Second World War...
So when it comes to Switzerland and me reacting to this why Switzerland economy model is falling apart, it's very interesting. Why? Because I grew up and lived the last 20 years of my life next to Switzerland. The Lake of Constance is a lake that is, in between, or not in between, but crosses borders in Switzerland, but also in Austria and then also in Germany. So I am 1 hour away from Zurich. I've spent many hours of my life, many weekends, many days on meetings in Switzerland with my Swiss team. So I definitely know Switzerland. I've been to many different cities in Switzerland, many different parts, and this is going to be very interesting because I basically just grew up next to Switzerland. Before we start with this, I am very sure that Switzerland, and I can agree with what this title is saying, the Switzerland economic model is falling, and I truly believe that the new Switzerland of the future is the UAE, the United Arab Emirates. That's where I live. That is the future. And Switzerland, obviously, if everyone that is living in Switzerland, they should know that Switzerland is an unbelievable country, well known for their banking system, for their laws in banking, to protect money for people, and also just like in general, the wealth. Switzerland is a very beautiful country, but you see it definitely degrading over the last couple of years, such as in general Europe and just like the Western and Westernized culture. So let's get into it. I'm very interested in it.
And hiding Nazi gold? That is incorrect. Because while the story about Nazi gold is true, Switzerland was actually already rich way before that. The real story of the Swiss wealth begins in the mid-19th century. Before that, Switzerland as a state didn't really exist, and instead it was a loose confederacy of relatively poor mini-regions, constantly fighting with each other. But in 1848, Switzerland was established as a unit.
So here again, a beautiful example just in general for success in life. If you can get big parties, big leaders together, they can achieve something stronger and bigger, because definitely most of the countries nowadays, also Germany for example, consists out of different states. America, the UAE, it's all the United States, right? United Arab Emirates, United States, United Kingdom. Very interesting that if they get together, they are way more powerful and they can form a strong country and change everything for them.
Unified state, and soon after, it turned from a simple rural country to one of the most developed economies in the world because of two things. First, immediately after Switzerland became an actual country, it started building railways connecting the different regions. Suddenly, many small companies spread around the country were able to grow at a much higher pace, and Switzerland went through a boom of industrialization in everything from pharmaceuticals, machinery, and luxury watches. And since Switzerland was still a small market, the new companies were forced to aggressively expand abroad, and over time they managed to grow into global giants, many of whom are still around today. And second, the Swiss banking industry was born, and pretty much since the start it was an immediate hit, thanks to one thing that made the Swiss banks different from banks anywhere else: the practice of what's called banking secrecy. Swiss banks committed to never disclosing any information about their clients.
There's this famous scene in The Wolf of Wall Street, right, where the Wolf of Wall Street goes to Switzerland for, to launder all his money, to keep his money on a Swiss bank account, and then he gives the question and the example, like he asks, like, what happens if the United States of America asked for, income proof or like a proof or like bilanzation or just like showing how much money I have in Switzerland. And then the banker in Switzerland says, oh, for us it's like a toilet paper, right? For us, like whatever they send us toilet paper, we don't give a fuck. So obviously having this law, only one little law at the end of the day has such a big impact. I mean, it's a very big law, but at the end of the day, just one little thing set it Switzerland up for decades of wealth, of economical, being a strong powerhouse in terms of economics and their own internal model. So it's insane.
Including who they are or what accounts they have, to any corporation, government, or law enforcement agency. And once Switzerland finally became a unified country with its own currency, stable political system, and the official policy of neutrality, it quickly became a very attractive place for many wealthy individuals to store their money. And over the coming decades, its popularity grew. Large Swiss banks like Credit Suisse and UBS were formed. Swiss bankers were going around Europe.
I mean, Credit Suisse, as we know, we had a little bit of problems. I think UBS bought them.
Europe, promoting banking secrecy. And while Europe was going through wars and instability, Switzerland remained a stable, neutral country where a breach of the banking secrecy became a federal crime. As a natural result, Switzerland became...
Wow, breaching the secrecy law would be a federal crime. So they punish it very hard. So obviously this is beautiful. That's the best thing for rich people that can happen for wealthy people, right? Put your money in one country. The secrecy is on point. No one can ask, no one can get information about your money, and it's just sitting there. Amazing.
Became the place for wealthy people from all over the world to store their money.
I definitely have to open a Swiss bank account. I don't know why I never did it.
And the Swiss banks made insane profits from providing that service, turning Switzerland into one of the richest countries in the world, with its banking system as the backbone of its economy. But this model that worked for so long is not really working anymore, and here's why. But first, I want to talk about a sponsor of this video.
No sponsor. We skip this. No, brother.
Growing bigger and bigger. It all started in the US, in the aftermath of the economic crisis of 2008. In the same year, when the US economy was hit by a major financial crisis, Barack Obama won the presidential election. On, among others, the campaign claimed that everyone needs to pay their dues, and that the government needs to crack down on wealthy Americans that are avoiding paying their taxes. And he specifically named Switzerland and Swiss banks with their secret accounts as the culprits that make this tax evasion possible. Once he assumed office, Switzerland found itself under an ever-increasing pressure from the US government to breach its centuries-long tradition of banking secrecy and hand over the information about their American clients.
Again, the US, huh?
Something that was actually against the Swiss law. But even though Switzerland fought tooth and nail against it, there's only as much that you can do when the most powerful country in the world really wants something from you. And as it happens, tax revenue is a pretty important motivation for the US government. And when the US was joined by the European Union, Switzerland found out that there's not much it can do. And rather than facing gigantic fines and sanctions, Swiss banks backed down. And since 2008, they went from not giving any information to anyone to providing information about their clients from the EU and the US to their respective governments every year. So while formally the banking secrecy still applies, in reality the practice no longer exists. And if you're an American or a European citizen, putting your money in...
I mean, if you build a country or anything in your life of value on two fundaments, on one very strong fundament, which is obviously Switzerland and the political system and being neutral and having a good economy due to the industrialization, which is one pillar, and then you have another one which is obviously the secrecy and banking and their laws. And if you obviously breach that, then you're only standing on two of them. The industrialization, every country in Europe has it now. Back then obviously they were the faster ones with the railways and could connect and build stronger and better companies. But for now, if they breach obviously this secrecy law, what made them ever rich and ever powerful, obviously you're fucked. They should have reinvested into other things and make it more stable.
In a Swiss bank account is not any more secret than doing it in your own country. And that is naturally very bad news for Switzerland, since the centuries-long tradition which made the Swiss banks so famous and so attractive...
Okay, I don't need a Swiss bank account anymore.
disappeared in less than a decade. And every year, the Swiss banks are forced to open up more and more. In order to save their clientele, and at least some of its appeal, the Swiss banks tried to change their value proposition. If they can't offer secrecy anymore, they double down on the offer of stability. You might no longer be able to hide your money from your own government in Switzerland.
Which we know nowadays also didn't work because Credit Suisse went bankrupt and was bought by UBS just a couple of months ago. So this video basically is a little bit older, obviously, and now with the president knowing that the Credit Suisse failed too, and all the other banks and more banks are about to fail, it looks bad for them. That happens if you build your whole economy on two pillars.
Switzerland, but at least you know that they are safe. After all, banks do fall every now and then, and the new marketing strategy for the country was to say that unlike in the US or the EU, the Swiss banks are a bastion of stability, safety, and security, where you can store your money without being afraid of what's going to happen with them. Except that's no longer really true either. In March this year, Credit
Perfect. There he goes.
Suisse, the second largest Swiss bank with 50,000 employees and more than 150 years of history, found itself on the edge of a total collapse. Contrary to the public image of Swiss banks as symbols of stability and careful management, Credit Suisse was everything but that. In recent years, the bank was bleeding money that it sank into bad investments, and it was battling a series of scandals, including involvement in money laundering, tax fraud, mismanagement of client funds, and bank executives that were spying on each other. As a result, by 2023, it was in a dire financial situation, and it was running out of money, but its biggest lenders refused to keep providing more cash, which sent the bank on the edge of bankruptcy. In the end, the Swiss government had to step in the last minute and force the largest Swiss bank, UBS, to buy Credit Suisse as the only possible way to prevent a complete meltdown of the entire Swiss financial system. But while Switzerland managed to dodge this bullet, this episode showed what shape the country's banking system is really in. The Swiss banks turned out to be just as badly managed and irresponsible with their clients' money as banks everywhere else. Their second largest bank and the entire banking system along with it nearly collapsed, which would have sent Switzerland into a worse crisis than the one.
I mean, Credit Suisse, and so for everyone that has money on the bank account, listen, Credit Suisse, the good working model of the Swiss secrecy laws showed us in the past that having money on the bank account, especially on a Swiss one, would have been a good thing to do. But nowadays, not even Switzerland anymore, no country, there's no reason for you to say and argue against having money on the bank account is good. So please guys, make sure that you put your money on crypto, that you put it on different crypto wallets, cold wallets, ledgers, that you hold it in different assets on the ledgers, on the wallets, but don't have it on your bank account, guys. Don't trust the past. Too many people lose money because they trust on what worked in the past, but it doesn't work now. The matrix has changed.
One in 2008. And instead of having two large banks, Switzerland now has one mega bank, which is not in a great shape either. And if the mega bank would collapse, it would take down the entire country along with it, which kind of makes the entire Swiss banking system pretty vulnerable. And that's not the end of the problems that the Swiss banks are facing. For centuries, Switzerland managed to benefit from conflicts that raged around it, thanks to its famous principle of neutrality, basically not choosing sides and remaining on good terms with everyone. But even that is not really working out anymore. While Swiss banks were known to do business with anyone, regardless of the geopolitical situation, they are now under increasing pressure to confiscate and hand over hundreds of billions of dollars that Russian oligarchs have stored in Swiss banks, or face sanctions if they refuse to do that. And most likely, they will sooner or later give in.
They will have to give in. Now they're vulnerable, like it's already done. It's a done deal.
Which will further diminish the reputation of what a Swiss bank account used to mean, and provide another reason why people might want to put their money somewhere else instead. Now, does all this mean that the Swiss economy is facing an imminent collapse? Well, no. Apart from banking and finance, Switzerland still has many extremely successful companies that are not going anywhere, and the Swiss Swiss will probably continue to be a relatively wealthy country for a lot longer, but chances are they will be not as wealthy as before. The banking sector is an extremely important part of the Swiss economy, and it has all.
So basically the only thing they can do now is increase taxes. Like, I don't know if he's going to talk about that, the new video is nearly done, but another very important thing about Switzerland, if you combine it to the countries next to Switzerland, such as Germany, Austria, and especially Europe, is that Switzerland has very low tax income laws, right? So basically there are some different states, cantons, how they call them, in Switzerland, like different parts where, for example, you have 7% or 5% or 20%. I guess 7% in Zug is like the lowest, but they have like different tax laws everywhere, and there's like a one-time taxation system. Means, for example, someone that has a couple of millions moves into a Swiss canton, into a Swiss state, and they can have a deal with the government on how much tax they pay one time, and then they can live there tax-free. So there's like adaptive tax systems and stuff. So that's another very big pillar in what makes Switzerland a strong economy, which they still have. But if everything else crashes, obviously as a state, to hold the infrastructure and everything, obviously they will have to increase taxes. So I guess and predict the next move in Switzerland will be increasing taxes in the different states, or maybe like one general tax for everyone, but it will definitely be increased, because that's the only counterpart that they can work now with and secure the future of Switzerland in terms of infrastructure, economy, the state, politics, and so on.
Already been in a difficult spot after it lost its banking secrecy, which used to be a major competitive advantage. And now, after
obviously
the embarrassing scandals and the fall of Credit Suisse, the stability of the Swiss banks is not guaranteed anymore either, meaning there are less and less reasons to put your money in a bank in Switzerland, while there are many other countries that offer a good amount of secrecy without all the annoying spotlight that Switzerland is now under. And so the reputation and fame of the Swiss banks, along with their massive profits, are more and more a thing of the past.
Definitely, 100%. Very informative video, very interesting for people that live in Switzerland, especially when it comes to money. The old ways don't work anymore. We see it beautifully with Switzerland. So again, if you have money on your bank account, it doesn't matter even in Switzerland. Be smart about it. There are better ways, and if you need help with that, just let me know. I can help you with strategies on how to prevail and save your money in better spots, especially when it comes to money. And the new Switzerland, as I said, the UAE, the United Arab Emirates, is the new Switzerland. Neutral, connections to everyone, strong power to everyone, power towards the US, power towards everyone beside and below them. What makes the UAE very powerful is an example that in Russia, right, with the Ukraine war, I mean, UAE spent a lot of money and gave it to Ukraine to support them. At the same time, they meet with Vladimir Putin, the president of Russia. So that's a flex, right? That was done on purpose. It was done on purpose to show how much power the UAE has. Helping the one party but meeting with the other one in 1 or 2 days is a move of showing how much power they have. And people that are intelligent and smart know, by showing how much power they have, this is a safe country for money, for investing, for banking. Let's get it, be smart about your money. See you soon, guys. Ciao, ciao.